thank you very much for staying tuned into Pan-African Television. If you just joined us, you're watching Good Morning Africa live on Pan-African Television, broadcasting from Accra across 32 African countries. A big thank you again for staying glued to Pan-African Television. Before the break, I was telling you about what we're going to be discussing today, but I believe that perhaps somebody just joined in. So let me go through the topics quickly before we kickstart the conversation. COVID-19 infections, state institutions shut down. Graphic reported that story. JM's choice of Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman, heartwarming. African women lawyers. KNOC SHS headmistress interdicted over death of student. The New Crusading Guide. Bako hits back at Rollins. The Daily Searchlight reported that story. Pope compares Libya's detention centers with concentration camps. Ghanaian Times also reported, and that is an African story that we're going to be discussing this morning. Excited to see Richard Asante from the corner of my eye as well, and I think that Honorable Minister Fuseini's prayers have been answered. We'll sandwich him. so hold on. So let me go for this short commercial break. I'll return shortly, please.
Breakfast good day, every day.
Nestle, good food, good life.
This advertisement has been vetted in a...
Breakfast good day, every day.
Every day.
Nestle, good food, good life.
This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
It's incredible! Bang on target!
Thank you. Welcome back. Richard Asante is here seated. Good morning to you, Richard, as well. Good morning to you, Honorable Ines of Senior Mr. Pratt. Honorable, let me quickly start with you on the African story. Pope compares Libya's detention centers with concentration camps. Honorable.
Yes, thank you so very much, KOD, and let me say good morning to my uncle Kwame Pratt, comrade, my friend Richard Asante, and to your numerous viewers, and to say that we are delighted once again to come to you this Thursday morning. Now, to compare the detention camps in Libya as to concentration camps is really an understatement. Really an understatement. As a member of the ACP-EU Joint Parliamentary Assembly, the detention centers in Libya has constantly featured in our discussions where ACP simply means African, Caribbean and Pacific, which came into being as a result of the Lomé Convention.
Okay.
And then EU, a partnership between African, Caribbean and Pacific regions and the European Union. This partnership anticipates the involvement of civil society organizations, parliamentary unions of the various countries meeting to discuss matters of mutual and common interest. And anytime we as parliamentarians meet, the detention centers feature. They feature because people are held in poor and inhumane conditions.
Absolutely.
Now, most people get to Libya or to the Maghreb region, Libya, Tunisia, Egypt, and those areas, Morocco, because those areas are nearer Europe. You just cross the Mediterranean and you are in Europe. If you are in Libya, you take off at Sirte, the birthplace of Muammar Gaddafi. The nearest port that you will get to is Lampedusa. And Lampedusa, which is not far from Sirte, is Italian territory. And so, just like Morocco and the Straits, they are so close that it becomes attractive. The greatest danger that you face is crossing the Mediterranean. And that is why many people have lost their lives. Close to about 500,000 people have lost their lives crossing the Mediterranean in makeshift boats and dinghies. In fact, save the lives or save something like that. An NGO elected unto themselves the responsibility of saving migrants who had experienced boat wrecks or whose dinghies were sinking on the Mediterranean. And even with these boats, with these NGOs doing that, it was difficult to land the refugees. You know the nationalist government in Italy and Spain and their difficulties with Europe, Turkey's resistance to the acceptance of immigrants, because the immigrant flow into Europe has become unbearable. That, in fact, one reason why Brexit happened so quickly was because of immigration. And so the European Union, because Libya had become a failed state, the European Union struck an accord with warlords in Libya and families, strong families in Libya, to try to keep these immigrants who had gotten to Libya and prevent them from crossing the Mediterranean. So you have detention centers sanctioned by the EU. And then you have private prisons. Some people in Libya as well, and you have heard the reports, have established private prisons where they keep people they have also been able to rescue, to arrest from the desert, trying to cross into Libya and then to Europe. Kept them in their private cells, and they are trading them as slaves. You heard the story of slaves in Libya, because those people now sell them to people or transfer property rights in them to people to be used as slaves. The International Migration of Labor, or what is his name? IOM has said repeatedly that the maintenance of the detention camps in Libya flouts international law. Repeatedly. But no one will listen. No one will listen. If you know the concentration camps, if you read about the concentration camps, you will get the import of what the Pope has said. The concentration camps as existed under Nazi Germany were just death sentences passed on people. People were separated according to what they could do, according to gender, according to age. And those who were held or seen to be infirm were immediately sent into the gas chamber. When a person entered the concentration camp, you either work to death or you be gassed to death. The Pope is saying that the detention camps are death camps. They are death camps. People who live there. And one person has said that the concentration camps, you'll be lucky to have bread, served one bread as a meal per day. And that when you are given one loaf of bread, you will be foolish to consume everything. Because that one loaf of bread that comes to you, you will never be able to tell when your next loaf will come. So you have to eat it in such a way as to anticipate a long haul of hunger or non-supply of food. So it's just death camps. Now, so the European Union should be doing more. I know in our discussions at the ACP-EU Joint Parliamentary Assembly, the European Union have said repeatedly that they are screening the people. And you have heard some have returned to their home countries. Rwanda agreed to take some of the people and try to integrate them in Rwanda, or at least provide for them until such a time that the people are ready to return to their home countries. Because there's simply no work in Europe. Europe is busting as it seems. Because of what is happening in Europe, is producing right-wing governments and anti-Semitism and anti-immigration, racism, and all those things that we had fought all this while are coming back. And so the Europeans are fearful that continuous immigration into Europe will spark destabilization, will reverse the progress that we have made. But countries that clearly contribute to the refugee problem, and Ghana, Gambia, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, all the West African countries, I don't hear much of the French-speaking countries, but Ghana, Gambia, Sierra Leone, Nigeria are major contributors. Sudan, Somalia are major contributors to the refugee problem. And so it behoves on our home country to put in policies that will create prosperity and help maintain our people. Because you can't hope to export the labor of your country. And these people are in their prime. The people who try to immigrate are the youth, the strong, who have energies to work. They are trying to go take their energy to Europe and sell to the Europeans. Sell to the Europeans. Why will that be so? It's because they see no hope. In fact, in Nigeria and in Sierra Leone, 2 people who were returned said that the least opportunity they will go back. They equated their existence in Sierra Leone and in Nigeria to the same as existing in the detention camps or trying to cross the Mediterranean, because they said life in Nigeria was just as difficult as life crossing the Mediterranean or in the detention camps. And that is the problem that we need to address.
Right.
So for me, I think that the Pope adding his voice to this matter. But how did it happen? It happened because the Western countries, because of the oil of Libya, gang together under the notion of promoting the the rights, the rule of law, and the respect for the fundamental rights of people in Libya toppled Gaddafi and created a fluid situation in Libya where there is no authority. Haftar and the UN-backed governments are battling it up. And so it has created room for warlords to emerge and people to hold private armies and all those things. And that is why people are going through Libya to Europe. So the West should also be held responsible for the... When Muammar Gaddafi was there, who dare you pass through Libya to Europe?
Well, thank you very much. If you just joined in, you're watching the News Preview segment on Pan-African Television with me, Kwame Owusu Danso. Thank you very kindly for choosing us, and thank you very much for staying glued to our station. The WhatsApp number is active. It's 026-084-6539. 026-084-6539. We're also streaming live on Facebook, facebook.com/Pan-African Television. Share with us what your thoughts are, and we will be glad to read them here all for you. Let me now come to you, Richard Asante.
I think good morning to your good self, my senior Mr. Pratt and my senior Honorable Senior. I think when we talk about Libya, it brings tears to some of us, our hearts and our minds, and also even our eyes. Because those who have been to Libya before, particularly during the era of Gaddafi, will know how the country was going and the paradigm for which it was heading. I had a lot of experience in that country because around 99, 2000 thereabout, there was some business arrangement regarding oil and also Africa, which had to be the national carrier of Libya. And those times we had fly jets when we were trying to do some work around in Ghana back in the days. But looking at where we've got into and where the world has positioned Libya, particularly with the influence of UK and the US, where they've positioned Libya now, they've literally messed up the country. Not only have they deprived the future generations of Libyans the rights for good living and other things, they've literally destroyed the country. Libya at the moment can be described to be a failed state. Not because of the Libyans themselves, but because of the activities of the Western world. They've not been very fair to the country. They've destroyed the country, whatever it stands for and where it was heading. Those times was when people completed universities and they are given accommodation for free. Before you complete university, you have your car lining up because of the way they position the country. People who were going to Libya, those areas, were not going because they wanted to move from Libya to Europe, but the intention was to work in Libya itself, because there was a heavy investment in infrastructure. So Masons and other people were literally going there around those areas. But what can we say about Libya now? I mean, Honorable gave the picture, which I support wholly. I share the sentiments he expressed, and every bit of his submission, I think I share and I believe and I know to be true. Because, my brother, as you speak now, Libya, we have what is called one of the biggest black market trades. Who participated in the destruction of Libya ought to come to the table and help in the reconstruction of this country. Because what it is that until such a time that these things are resolved, because now, I mean, Libya of all countries cannot organize any proper thing because of what is happening. And I'm telling you that until such a time that we all sit down as Africans and unite ourselves and look beyond the borders that we have and see ourselves as one, we will continuously live in these sort of difficulties.
Right.
And these are some of the challenges that are then engulfed us.
Right.
You see, when you look at the platitudes sometimes we give to certain leaders across the world, we forget that in the same measure, we are asking, these leaders are asking for the lives of former leaders of Liberia, Charles Taylor, former leaders of Ivory Coast. What's the name? The one who was tried at the International Court of all these people have been tried. Ask yourself the number of deaths that people suffered during the era of Obama and Bush in both Iran, Iraq, and Libya. Can you compare this? So these are some of the challenges that we do have, the unfair level playing field in terms of thinking and reasoning and applying the laws of the world. And these are some of the major difficulties. But for us as a country, we ought to learn lessons. what can we do to help in this situation? One, making sure that we provide employable skills for our people and our youth, because that is the only way you will not have a Ghanaian chasing to the Western world, to wanting to go and seek for a greener pasture, because the pastures are literally dried. It's dried up. We are seeing that even in certain instances, Ghana and other countries within the African continent reasons and act better than the world when this COVID situation brought its ugly head. We are seeing how leaders are acting as insane individuals across the world. People are acting as though they have no conscience in terms of an application of common basic protocols to help deal with this major menace. So for me, what I think is that going forward, what ought to be done is all these concentration camps ought to be shut. When people are arrested, they ought to be repatriated back to their countries. Even if at a fee, it's better than taking these people, harvesting their organs, killing them, putting some of them into slavery. We are talking about slavery in these areas. Formerly, people were coming here to force us into slavery. Now we are giving ourselves out there and pushing ourselves that, please, we are here, take us and let us be slaves. So these are some of the things that we need to work on.
Right.
And I do believe that going into the future,
Thank you.
The African continent will rise up against some of these difficulties that we
Thank you
face.
very, 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 very much. Mr. Pratt.
Well, I think that the statement of the Pope is true, at least to a very large extent. I mean, what is happening in the detention camps in Libya? The racism in the detention camps in Libya is astounding, you understand. And if you look at the concentration camps which were established by the Hitlerite regime in Germany, racism formed a huge part of the atrocities which were committed against the Jewish people. In these detention camps in Libya, racism is at its peak. Persons, Africans, persons with a certain pigmentation of the skin and so on, are singled out for brutal treatment. They are executed by guards. They are sometimes denied food and basic necessities and so on. And then above all, they are sold into slavery. So to describe these detention camps as concentration camps is apt. I'd like to take a step further and to ask the question, who is responsible for the current situation in Libya? And why did the world look on as one step after another led to the current situation? Those responsible for the current mayhem in Libya are largely the Western countries. The United States of America, the United Kingdom, France, and others deliberately created this situation. And this situation was deliberately created to enable the Western powers to continue to pursue their colonial agenda of seizing our resources for their own benefit. So, to simply describe the situation in the detention camps in Libya as being similar to the conditions in the concentration camps is not enough. We need to wage a vigorous struggle against all forms of imperialism, all the practices of the West, which keeps us as slaves, which is leading to our extinction as a people. We need to stand up. And the best way of doing that is to change the paradigm of development in Africa and all underprivileged sections of the world. The best way of doing that is to embark upon a policy of self-reliance, collective self-reliance, and to work for the unification of the African continent under a single socialist regime. That's the only way of defeating these machinations of imperialism. The only way of defeating the machinations of imperialism is to struggle for a situation in which the African people will own and control their own resources, and which would ensure that those resources will be exploited for the benefit of the African masses. That's the only way. All this neoliberal approach to national economic development is not helping anybody. All this kowtowing to imperialism is not going to help anybody. I mean, the African Union has ceased to be what it was envisaged to be. I mean, the African Union is becoming gradually but surely an extension of the European Union and other such forces around the world. I mean, if you look at the economic partnership agreement that we signed with the European Union, it's a pact of enslavement. And our governments are happy. Our governments are so happily signing these obnoxious agreements which undermine our sovereignty, which undermines the unity of the African people, which undermines our economy. It is incredible. You understand? It's completely incredible and unacceptable. I mean, they are mouthing slogans. Our leaders are mouthing slogans when they are actually working against the interests of the African people. And it's about time that the progressive forces in Africa unite, you know, and build a solid block of resistance, not just against imperialism, but the agents of imperialism who are parading as our leaders on the continent. They all have to give way. We have to force them out of office. We have to create a new Africa. Africa has to return to the era where it had leaders, you know, like Osagyefo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, like Sekou Touré, like Modibo Keita, you know, and so on, like leaders like Frantz Fanon and so on. That's the path to go. All these neo-colonial agents, whose organizations and themselves supported apartheid in South Africa have no place in leadership in Africa today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. The WhatsApp number is still active, 0260846539, 0260846539. We're also streaming live on Facebook, facebook.com/Pan-African Television. Please share with me what your thoughts are. I will read them out here for you. Now, we're moving on to discuss COVID-19. And I think it's imperative. There are two issues on COVID-19, so we're going to marry those two issues. One has to do with the fact that state institutions have shut down owing to COVID-19, and KNUST SHS headmistress interdicted over death of student also is another issue that I want us to look at both issues in one. Richard Asante, let me start with you on this one.
I think from what we know of COVID and what the studies is telling us, I mean, we can only be free of COVID when there's a vaccine. Beyond that, the only way we can take care of ourselves is trying to imbibe in us the acceptance and also the application of the various protocols that have been issued by the WHO and Ghana Health Services when it comes to the situation of Ghana. And also being careful and moving when necessary and avoiding crowd and all these things that we've known over the period through public education. Because for how and the way we see things, we've come to understand one thing, that as a country, our common enemy in terms of this kind of COVID situation is the COVID itself, but not ourselves. Because we realize that the COVID is not looking at politics, not looking at status in society. Politicians in both NDC and CPP, whatever other parties that we have out there, including the smaller parties, are all catching the COVID-19. Which part is not true?
Which CPP man has caught COVID-19?
It will be unfair to me to sit on TV and mention somebody's name.
Yeah. I can mention that the Minister of Health has had
because he announced it himself. But if the person has not put those information out there, to be unfair.
McMahon didn't announce it himself.
No, it was announced. McMahon's status was announced, and he gave the right for it to be announced. And I'm saying that I know. Remember that I'm within the health sector, so if I say no, I know.
You don't know.
You don't know. In terms of CPP members,
yes,
I do know.
One.
Okay. Maybe after
you tell us.
I will give you the permission to mention.
But that would be unfair. That would be unfair.
It's not true.
But it's true.
Okay, proceed.
It's true. Unless you are telling me that you practically know every CPP member, you are looking at leadership. But I know people within the CPP who have gotten. I know people within the NDC who have gotten. But I mean,
okay. Okay.
Which one should I mention?
Go
I'm getting you. So it tells you that
yes, sir.
when it comes to COVID-19, it has no political colors. It's cutting every facet of our society. I know Muslims who have gotten COVID-19. I know Christians who have gotten COVID-19. I know the rich in society who have gotten COVID-19, and the poorest of the poor within the society who have gotten COVID-19. I know medical doctors who have gotten COVID-19, nurses, lab scientists, journalists, and so on and so forth. Judges. It tells you one thing, and the one thing is that it is not respecter of person, status in society, religious background, or whatever you might want to call it. It's just going after all of us. So we ought to be very careful. And as we speak now, we know Boston had some cases, about 46 people tested positive. So because of that, they've literally shut down operating from their homes. I know finance ministry had a difficulty, so now they also have put in measures in place. We've heard of Greco. We heard of even private, before even all these state institutions started getting their fair share, we knew of private institutions around Tama area there where factories were affected, and because of one person, practically over 500 people got infected with that. So it tells you that where we are going, there's no way out if you do not apply these protocols. Now the question will be, can we perpetually shut ourselves down and lock ourselves in a room until a vaccine is found, which is impossible and cannot happen? Because once we do that, our very existence will be threatened. Though we do know that in terms of even this COVID thing, is making the very existence of this country and the world at large threatened. Because you know, when you go to the US, they are looking at numbers that are staggering. South Africa is literally suffering because of this. Brazil is on its knees. You are seeing its ravaging impact on various countries. And this is what is happening, and it's messing up economies. It's destroying economies, it's shattering homes, it's destroying marriages. Because I know people who, because of COVID-19, the husband is gone, they've literally become a single mother. I know people who have lost their mothers. I know people who have lost both mother and this thing. And I sit here today, yesterday was a week, exactly a week when our former General Secretary, the CEO of Forestry Commission, passed on, Sir John. So it tells you that what we ought to do as a country is to try and fight this thing together and take away the politics that we continuously make. I know when you're talking about it, you talked about the incident on the campus of KNUST.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I felt that, and though now the mistress is under interdiction, and GS, I understand, is doing some investigation, wanting to understand what really happened. But for what we understand from the preliminary investigation, it wasn't being covered.
Yeah,
they understand that. And the mother spoke at length on one of these radio stations, wailing and sharing tears. And I could not feel for that because I'm a parent of 3 kids. Now, do you not want that to happen to any of them? For your child to go to school and this situation, the management of it was a major difficulty. Watching the video where even lecturers or teachers who are supposed to take care and represent the parents on campus literally shared their responsibility and folded their arms, watching until this girl lost their life. Effort that could be made was to reach out to the medical facility, which was even directly opposite the campus, or called even the COVID-19 team, or just call an ambulance. All these measures were not done until this boy or this student lost life. It tells you that because of the fear of COVID, people are even scared of helping people when they're in difficulty. People are scared. So for me, where we sit and where we are going, we ought to understand that we cannot perpetually shut ourselves. We cannot stay in rooms. We cannot close our businesses, because if you are going to shut everything down, then nothing will operate. All of us have to be in the rooms. How can we do that? How can we survive? There are certain members of society within certain class of the economy who will survive even if the country is shut down for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. There are people who live their lives and sustain themselves on a daily basis. So once you even shut them down for like a week or two, there's a major difficulty. So I think these are some of the things that we needed to look at. You realize when you go to India, people started flouting the regulations because they realized that they've been shut down and they were dying in their rooms. So they felt, okay, let's go to the street for the military or the police to beat us. Let's go out there and allow the system to punish us. Let COVID kill us because we cannot stay indoors and die out of hunger. So these are some of the challenges that we do have. So in managing this situation, you need to look at all the issues that we have, look at the situation. Because at the moment, in as much as the numbers are going up, our recovery rate is also doing better. Currently, we have our recovery rate and discharge policy numbers hovering around over 17,000. So it's also that we are doing better in that regard. So one will not expect somebody to get sick and look at recovery. Even in terms of the death rate, I mean, even if one person should lose their life, it's a major challenge. But it has not been the way we all feared. So we continuously pray and also support the Ghana Health Service and the various hospitals who are working around the clock to help this. We know that the government has provided everything that needs to be provided. There are certain moments that there are a major challenge. For instance, when it got to a point, we realized that it was only Noguchi that was operating in terms of the testing centers. KCCI and other centers were not operating because of reagents. There were no reagents to support the labs. Because they ran out of it. It was just Thursday that they received volumes of them. Because we have a situation where every country is facing the same challenge. There's a major difficulty in terms of even assessing some of these resources to help with the situation. But I do believe that the channel that we've taken, the effort that have been made by government, i.e., making sure that at least we hold on to this relevant education be passed on to the people, fighting against stigmatization, making sure that this water is being provided. I said, God, for a period of 3 months, we have free water given to the population to cushion people. Okay. Electricity was provided for free for the lifeline consumers, and 50% discount was given to the other members of the population who could afford. I hope you're getting me. Stimulus packages are being rolled out to support businesses. These are some of the things that government is doing to support it. And I know that going forward, there will be more. There could be more to support and also cushion all of us. All what we need to understand is that government cannot come and put nose mask on your nose. But what government will do is put in measures in terms of legislation. It is up to you to follow those legislation and guidelines. So let's follow it and protect ourselves. Let's protect ourselves against this deadly virus. That's the only way we can work around this.
Thank you, Richard Asante. Honorable Inusa Fuseni.
Now I can understand Richard Asante and his passion not to politicize the fight against COVID-19. I perfectly agree with him. I mean, Gabriel, what's the name of that World Health Organization boss, had told us right from the beginning that politicization of the fight against the pandemic will not brood well for our efforts at containing its spread, and that the onslaught of the pandemic offered the world a unique opportunity to act together. Precisely because coronavirus, in attacking people, does not ask for race, does not ask for political coloration, does not ask for status. It attacks people. And so we were quite surprised when the president of Ghana sought to monopolize COVID-19 for political campaigns. We were quite shocked. And at any time the president was given an opportunity to address the nation, he dropped carrots. At any time, to try to look good in the eyes of the Ghanaian people. And we said, watch it, Mr. President. That forced his political opponents to also remain relevant in the fight against coronavirus, and that was worrying. So, Richard Asante, on this platform, the day the president removed the lockdown, the infection rate in this country was 1,042. 1,042. The deaths were below 30. The deaths. My brother Kwame Pratt on this platform said that it was reckless and against the advice of established state institutions to remove the lockdown. And that he was predicting, when it was 1,042, that he was predicting that we will get to 20,000. People texted in and said he was a doomsayer. Haven't we gotten there? Things take their color from their surrounding. Because if you put politics ahead of the lives of a people, you get the result that we are getting. Today, our president is in isolation. Our president is in isolation. Ministers are in isolation. A chief executive has died, former general secretary of the MPP. Many more people are dying who are unaccounted for because they are not chief executives, they are not politicians, they are not in the public space. So I agree with you. CPP members, NDC members could even be dying. We have created the conditions for the spread of the virus. It's we. Today we have said that the Electoral Commission should register people. We remove the lockdown, we reduce the restrictions. The president issued an EI 164 and said that he had raised the number to 100 people to be able to gather. And within the 100 people, when I said it here, you challenged me that was not the result, that was not the reason for the spike in the infection. Within the 100 people, he did so to allow the MPP to hold their primaries. And so, problem. And we know, Richard, you are in the health sector. We know that the prosperity or the possibility of the disease spreading goes with people congregating. We know. Look, you mean the Minister of Health, Mr. Kwame Pratt asked it here, you mean the Minister of Health did not follow the protocols? You mean the Sir John did not follow the protocols? You mean the President did not follow the protocols? The Chief Justice is in hiding. He's in isolation.
They have not tested positive.
Yes, he's in isolation. Why? Why is it? Why? Today the Chief Justice is in isolation. President is in isolation. Don't you think that it is because he's privileged to be the president, that's why he's in isolation? Do you know the number of people you have been exposed to? Do you know the number of people that you have been exposed to that you are not in isolation? Do you know? So please, let's stop it. The Times itself, in the editorial of today, is saying that we are losing the fight. The Times, the state mouthpiece, is saying that we are losing the fight. President, after MPP primaries, when he was being confirmed, what did he say? He said, oh, he saw the MPP people, they breached the protocols and the EI, but they should not repeat it. They should not repeat it. Meanwhile, when two pastors in Kumasi violated the EI, you did not tell them, go and sin no more. You didn't tell them that. What kind of selective application of justice is this? What kind of but so your MPP delegates who breached all the protocols were granted amnesty. They were told to go and sin no more.
There are no evidence of that.
Oh, you address it too. Richard, I'm not saying it too.
The way we conducted the election.
So you see that, Richard, are you saying that the president himself did not?
More than 60 people could vote in it because we were doing
Richard,
an electoral.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying it too.
In each electoral area, the highest number of people you can get voting within an electoral area is 16.
Yeah, Richard,
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it too.
Yeah,
I heard the president. His confirmation was live, and the president said it. You mean the president was wrong? No, I'm not saying it. I'm saying that when it came to the MPP delegates, the president said, go and sin no more. But when two pastors violated, he said, go take them to jail. Punish them. Executive authority is vested in the president, Article 58 of the Constitution. the power of the police to act derives from the power of the president.
I'm not sure the president has stopped any police from arresting anybody.
But I'm just telling you, because an police arrest is executive in nature. It's not legislative or judicial. So when you want me to give you an example? When Obiri Buahi said what he's Obiri, or what is the name? Oh, this our NDC man in Sunyani.
NDC man in Sunyani.
Or part of the June 4th. Oh, that man who said Ghana will electoral commission to watch it. Watch it.
That was not Katapori. Okay.
No, Katapori. Oh, just recently. He was arrested and
Bochijan. Okay.
Yeah.
But when Obiri Buahi said it, he was not arrested.
Obiri Buahi, what he said, and what Bochijan said, Your Honor, we know that.
Okay. Yeah.
That's, I mean, you can't compare the two.
Yeah, selective application of justice by quantitative and context analysis. So I'm saying that, look, this is the time to spread hope, not despair. This is the time to spread calm, not fear. But our activities, the way we are responding to the COVID-19, does not inspire hope, does not bring about calm. Why will you suspend a head teacher who is not a frontline staff, who has not been given a PPE, who has not been told how to or trained how to handle COVID-19 suspect cases? Because somebody in his school is dead, who was struggling to die, whose sickness they didn't know. Why will you take that action? Why will you interdict that woman?
Oh, no, I'm sure I respond.
No, I'm just saying, you don't understand. Because, first of all, you didn't know what the person was suffering from. The teachers,
Richard, hold on.
the teachers who are teaching in school are not designated frontline staff. So you see, when you make scapegoats of people to save face, you spread fear. I can tell you as a former teacher that this action has instilled fear in almost all teachers who are presently in the schools. Because they do not know. You are put between the devil and the deep blue sea. If somebody is suffering today, and we have the evidence that shows the medical doctors and nurses who have been affected or afflicted by this COVID-19 virus have been medical doctors and nurses who are not working in designated COVID centers. They are working in the emergency ward. So when the people report first and they try to attend to them, because they are not given the necessary PPEs, they catch COVID-19. That's the evidence is there, very clear. So I believe that what the education authorities should have done the first time was to instill calm, not fear. Don't punish anybody. Don't interdict anybody. Get the school authorities to understand that what they did probably, they ought to have acted faster. And educate or take opportunity to educate all teachers on how to respond to emergency situations like this. Get the students to understand that this is the time that they need to stick together. Because by rioting and coming together, they are exposing, if that person died through COVID-19, they themselves, by doing what they did, were exposing themselves to infection. This is not the time to spread fear. Richard, tell your government, it is not the time to spread fear. We are not, Minister of Finance is working from home. Greco is working from home. Supreme Court has closed down. Judges are afraid. What country? Cabinet has been suspended.
Yeah.
Do you think that is well for us?
Anyway, thank you. Mr. Pratt.
Well, 2 days ago, the African Center for Infectious Disease Control, which is an AU body, and it's recognized by the United Nations International Organization, actually rated Ghana amongst the 5 worst cases in Africa. So I'm surprised that people in government and spokespersons for government are saying we are doing well. 5 worst cases in Africa. Africa has more than 50 countries. We are among the 5 worst cases in Africa. And I listened to an interview by a spokesperson of the organization on the British Broadcasting Corporation. And he was saying that they are worried, their main worry about the spread of COVID-19 in Africa has to do with Nigeria, South Africa, Ethiopia, Ghana, and another country. So how can we be doing well when we are the worst? We are the worst, and we say we are doing well. What logic is that? We are the worst. 5 worst countries in Africa. Ghana is one of them. And we say we are doing well. Is this doing well? Then if we are not doing well, what will happen?
Disaster.
If this is doing well, if we are not doing well, what will happen? One of the 5 worst cases in Africa. Master, today, as we sit here, on the front page of the graphic, I mean, if you read it, you should be worried. Look at the institutions which are being shut down. Cabinet is suspended. Do you know the implications of that? The nerve center of government decision making is suspended. Yeah. That's the brain of the government. The nerve center of government decision making is suspended. Ministry of Finance is closed. Ministry of Finance, the nerve center of everything financial in this country, is closed. Cocoa Marketing Board, I mean, this country is heavily dependent on cocoa. It's closed. Bust is closed. Look at the list of state institutions which have been closed. What this is telling us is that whether you like it or not, the shutdown will be imposed by our circumstances. Because this is an imposition of a shutdown. It is not all-embracing, it is not comprehensive, but if you start closing one after the other, eventually we'll close everything. Supreme Court is not sitting. And we are here beating our chest with vigor about the successes we have achieved. It is not true, we are failing.
Mr. Brown, which company said that we are 5 among the 5? I'm trying to look for it.
It's not a company. It's the African Center for Infectious Disease Control. Check it.
It's just like the CDC in America.
Yes, Africa Center for Infectious Disease Control.
Yeah.
You think I'm lying? Go and check. You'll be shocked. You understand? Now listen. This is the condition in which we find ourselves. We are so busily beating our chest that we have succeeded. Succeeded in doing what? And some of the statements which are made by public officials are just completely irresponsible, totally reckless. It has no foundation in science, and indeed in some instances, they are barefaced stupidity. Now let me explain. Well, we are told that this disease has come to stay, so we should learn to live with it. Oh, we can't do anything about it, you know, if you don't find a cure, if you don't find a vaccine. Is that true? It is not true. Look at the case of Mauritius. Mauritius had under 200 cases of COVID-19. Under 200 cases of COVID-19. They imposed a lockdown. Today, they have 0 cases of COVID-19. So Mauritius is demonstrating to us that it is possible to halt the infection. Without a vaccine, without a cure, it is still possible to halt the infection. Look at the example of Mauritius. From 200 cases to 0, and they've been 0 for 3 weeks. 0 cases for 3 weeks. Do they have a vaccine? Do they have a cure? Just the application of common sense and following science. Why? Wasn't it our president who told us that the disease has no legs and that it is human beings who carry it when they move? So why don't you stop the movement of human beings, as Mauritius has done so successfully? Let's just stop telling us those stories. Stop telling us those stories, because if you tell us those stories, you insult our intelligence. And then we are told that recovery rate. What does that mean? Recovery rate, what does that mean? Last week, the Ghana Medical Association issued a statement and said that classification must be looked at again because it is deceptive. Ghana Medical Association, not me. Recovery, what do you do for people to recover? What we know, the science itself says that indeed about 98% of those who get that disease, whether they take medicine, whether they go into anything or not, will recover. So the recovery rate, is it the result of effort? It is not. Indeed, there are people who can get this virus. They will never cough, they will never sneeze, they will never have a running nose, they won't go to any hospital, and they will still recover. So they should stop telling us this useless story about recovery rate. It's a useless story. We don't want to hear it. I mean, when they boast about the number of people who are dying, were you expecting more people to die? Should more people die? They should stop wasting our time, wasting our years. We are in crisis. Ghana is in deep crisis. We have failed to manage the situation properly. The situation has gotten out of hand, completely gotten out of hand. Read the graphic editorial today. Graphic editorial, read it today. We have failed. Now, the point where we have reached, even the imposition of a lockdown will not help us. Because we come to the level of community spread of the disease. You understand? We've refused to do mass random testing. Some countries are testing 3 million in a day. 3 million in a day. How many have we tested since March? China. How many have we tested? He doesn't know. How many have we tested?
Because when you are comparing, you can't compare. But you are comparing us to China.
But you
want to make comparison because even I'm checking the African, like African Center for Infectious Disease Control. What there is African Center for Excellence for Genomics of Infectious Diseases. No. I'm coming. You come here.
If you can't find it,
I'll check for it. No,
okay. I'll check it.
You can also check.
I'll check it for you.
I'll also check for the story.
I'll check it for you. If you don't know, say you don't know.
I'm checking.
I'll check it. Richard, I'll check it for you.
I'm not working at it.
Richard, I'll check it for you. I'll check it for you. Yeah. So hold on.
I'm saying the US can also check.
Hold on. The man was on BBC yesterday. He was on BBC yesterday.
Maybe the name that you gave is not.
Okay. It doesn't matter.
But I'm saying you gave something that I have to check. Checking, I didn't find it.
No. When you Google, that's the first thing that comes. African Center for Disease Control is here.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Park, please proceed.
The same Google that I check.
The head is a Nigerian or something like that.
But I heard the man being interviewed on BBC yesterday. Everybody heard it. And he said it was repeated throughout the day yesterday.
I'm doing his business.
I'm saying that.
Let's allow Mr. Pratt make his point, and then I'll give you a opportunity. So hold on. Yeah, please go on.
That's what I'm saying.
No, Richard. For the purpose of time.
No, a minute. When what is he? Mr. Pratt said that. African Center for Infectious Disease Control. And I'm saying that there's nothing like that.
Oh, there is.
No, it is nothing like African Center for Infectious Disease Control.
African Center for Disease Control.
Yes, they're the same.
Oh,
that's what of course, I told you.
But there's also African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That's one.
I'm saying that there's nothing like what he said.
Okay, no problem. So we'll take infectious out.
I mean, I'm saying that maybe the name, what he communicated is not what he wanted to communicate.
Okay, all right.
But there's nothing like that.
No problem. Mr. Purpose. I beg you. I take infectious out. Are you satisfied?
Now you can go on.
Richard, my brother, we are one of the 5 worst cases in Africa. That's a fact. Does it matter who said it? The statistics show that we are one of the 5 worst cases in Africa. Stop beating your chest and admit the facts. Master, you know something? Sometimes our public authorities, they actually misbehave, completely misbehave. Before this KNUST matter came up, there was a case of a gentleman who went to a clinic and was showing symptoms of COVID-19. Clinical. The nurses on duty, the doctors on duty and so on, were afraid because they didn't have PPEs. So they didn't touch him and he died. This story was on Peace FM. The widow weeping, crying on radio and so on. That is a fact. You understand? Why do people in government or who speak for government think that as for nurses and doctors, they are suicidal? Nurses and doctors, are they suicidal? They should go and die. You implement bad policies, create conditions for the disease to spread, and as for nurses and doctors, they are foolish. They don't have wives, they don't have children, they don't have husbands. So they should go and embrace the disease and die with it. Why? I listened to the General Secretary of the Ghana Registered Nurses Association. They went to a hospital on inspection. Only 2 PPEs were available. This was 2 weeks ago. 2 PPEs were available. Nurses are crying. They don't have simple face masks. The priestess who sent her niece to Kolebu Hospital, I'm sure you all saw the video.
Yeah.
And the niece was taken to intensive care unit. Not a pint of sanitizer was available. As we speak, 150 health personnel have caught the disease. 150. In a country where you already have a problem with doctor-patients ratio, nurse-patients ratio, and so on, 150 of your health personnel have caught the disease. And you are still thumping your chest. What is that? I am very sad that this student had to die. I'm so sad. I can feel the pain of the parents and so on. But who is responsible? Is it the poor headmistress who cannot tell COVID-19 from malaria? Is she the person who is responsible? Or the people who decided to open schools when they knew that Ghana is one of the 5 worst situations in the whole of Africa? They decided to open schools. They decided to open schools. You open the schools. When you open schools, what were you expecting? You know that your teachers are not doctors. Your teachers are not nurses. If I were a teacher, and I saw a student collapsing in these circumstances, what do you think will first come into my mind? If the president or vice president or the ministers were teachers in a school and they saw a patient collapsing, would they go and embrace the student? They should stop giving us that. And you see, this is a situation of panic. Yes, Richard, you are right. They could have called the ambulance. They could have done extra. You are absolutely right. But do you know what panic does to people? The teachers were overwhelmed. They didn't know what to do. They panicked. When you panic, you don't think right. That is what happened. They panicked. Are you going to punish them for panicking? Are you going to punish the teachers and so on for panicking? The people responsible for that death are the people who opened the schools and the people who are insisting that we should keep opening the schools. Why? If students in senior secondary school don't take their examinations this year, what will happen? What will happen if students don't take the examinations this year? What will happen? Will this country come to a halt? Can they take these examinations next year? Kenya has done that. Kenya has done the sensible thing by deciding that examinations are postponed for 1 year. Because they place emphasis on the health of their students. They've decided that it should be postponed for 1 year. We are forcing them to go to school. Look at what happened at the Accra Girls. Look at the anxiety that patients exhibited at Accra Girls and so on. You understand? Why? We are told that, look, economics is also a science. And that we are being led by science. So we are being led by the science of economics. When you have a pandemic and we are led by the science of economics, you are irresponsible. Because when you have a pandemic, you should be led by biomedical science and not economic science. We have failed completely. Completely failed.
I disagree.
That's the reality.
You can disagree, but we have failed.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. Let me read a few of the messages that have come through.
Mr. Pratt has consistently mentioned that Ghana is among the 5 worst performing countries in terms of the
BBC. I'm showing you where to go.
I've gone to BBC, and it's not there. And there's not I've gone to
you have your own BBC.
Mr. President, viewers can check. My brother, you can also check. And this aspect about the African Center for Disease Control. No, Mr. President, the point is that these are facts that you are putting out there. Challenging what even the WHO has said in terms of Ghana's fight against this COVID. In terms of what other reputable bodies have mentioned, in terms of how we position ourselves and the effort that we made and the successes that we chopped in this. I'm not, from the moment you started speaking to this time, government has not done anything to solve anything. There has not been any effort. You see everything that has been done, and I mean, the cynicism ought to be, of course, the point is that those cynicism that you express, I mean, it's allowed. I hope you get, because you are in the participatory democracy. But the point is that there's no fact.
Okay.
There's no fact to that point, and there's no source.
My producers are looking for the facts.
So let's
proceed and look at the other issues.
But something very simple, Richard. You know, you are in the medical field. When we meet here, I respect that and so on. Are you honestly saying that you believe that somebody like me will come and sit on this platform and peddle falsehood? With regards to a news outbreak.
I cannot undermine your.
I am a journalist of more than 15 years experience.
Sometimes what you say might be a source that you looked at, and I'm trying to check. Initially, you said this.
Okay, so let's proceed respectfully. Now, one other issue that has become a big issue in this country has to do with the appointment of Madam Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman by His Excellency, the former President of the Republic of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama. Honorable Enusa Fuseni, JM's choice of Prof. Opoku-Agyeman is very heartwarming, according to African women lawyers. I've also cited a statement issued by. I've also cited a release by African Women in Leadership Organization. Several other women groups have issued statements congratulating the president for this novel feat. And also changing the paradigm of our politics and moving the frontiers of our political conversation. So, I mean, we're excited. You predicted not as it's supposed to be, but you gave us a little idea of the choice of running mate to His Excellency.
First of all, I told you here on this platform,
you didn't need
sitting on this chair that I'm sitting.
Yeah,
that Bombay was not our standard.
Absolutely.
I told you that we don't elect people to come and talk gibberish. Ghanaian people. I also told you that we want people of integrity, people who come and do the work. And it has come to pass. But Bawumia is not in the class of Jean Mensa. I say Jean Mensa, Jean Nana Opoku-Agyeman. So clearly, Nana is not a man. He's not a short person. He's not a professor in economics. Nana is in a class of her own. So those who were thinking and had promoted Bawumia as the be and end all of Ghana intellectual politics should review their notes. You see, AWLA, African Women Lawyers Association, have issued a press statement congratulating Professor Jean Nana Opoku-Agyeman, and that's proper. That's proper because there is nothing short of being historic. The nomination of Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman as running mate to John Dramani Mahama the single largest, biggest opposition party with the prospect of winning elections in this country. Because somebody might argue that there have been women running mates. Yes. But for the NDC and the MPP, who in this fourth republic have alternated power, nothing of that sort has happened. Now, I also yesterday saw a video, I don't know whether you saw it, of Oslo Owusu.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an old video. Yeah.
We said MPP doesn't respect women. Old video. Clearly, again, it clearly shows us that NDC under John Dramani Mahama has shown that gender equality and empowerment of women and girls will promote inclusive, sustainable, and participatory development. Clearly. And that you don't treat women who constitute 51% of the population of Ghana with contempt.
Absolutely.
And that when His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo was being lectured on the amplification of women, he failed to grasp the import. That you put people, women particularly, who are capable, qualified, in positions of authority to amplify them so that they serve as beacon, as hope for people who aspire to reach where they have reached. That's how you strive to promote gender equality. But in the midst of cultural and social limitations or challenges holding women back, you don't pass laws and say that our laws are gender neutral. And so women should fight within those laws and emerge. So the appointment and acceptance of Professor Nana Opuka-Agyemang as running mate does this things for the NDC. Now, I also think that this appointment, this nomination, this honor done Nana is an honor to all women in this country. It's an honor to all women in this country. That today, me and my brother Kwame Pratt and Richard Asante, and probably you, we will begin getting children. That if you bring forth your children and they are female, they can aspire. If they are political, they will have reasonable and legitimate expectations that when they strive to obtain laurels, in future they might be considered for positions of authority. They now have to think of it as a matter of right. So I say, we got the NBP and the Electoral Commission said we got 44.4% in the last elections. 6% is not that difficult a tax. And I believe that Professor Nana Opuka-Agyemang will bring us the 6% or more to win the elections. You see, Richard, I said Bombe was not our yardstick. Don't you see a level of refreshness since the appointment of Nana? Do you listen to the discourse in the public space? Because she's not your notion of the traditional professional politician whose integrity has been battered so much that what he even means well, people take it what he says with a pinch of salt. Or an intellectual vice president who has been so consumed by politics that he is no longer taken serious. I had the opportunity to meet Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman in 2009, when as a member of Ghana's delegation on the Constitution Committee of UNESCO, Professor Mills had nominated Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman to serve on the executive board of UNESCO. As a member of the Constitution Committee of UNESCO, we were also dealt with elections. I was privileged to be part of a group that lobbied for Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman in Paris to get onto the executive board. And this is, Richard was, Richard knows what he was saying.
What you didn't find is available.
You should scroll up so that you know that it's from Africa CDC.
Oh, Richard.
Please proceed.
You, why are you trying to destabilize Richard?
No, carry on.
But you don't worry. Don't worry.
I'll forward it to you. I'll forward it to you.
So you see, this is a woman. Look, if no matter your status in life, she listens to you with rapt
attention. That's
no matter your status in life.
But
and she chooses her response carefully. She chooses her words. This is a woman who, as Minister of Education, discharged herself so creditably that today we can say that nobody can hold her personally responsible for any decision that she took as minister.
Chairman Sabosu disagrees with you.
This is, Chairman Sabosu is dancing to the wind. He's dancing to the wind. Because this is the first woman in this country to be vice chancellor of a university. You know a university?
UCC.
You know a university? A university is a microcosm of a nation. All people of all tribes and persuasions are there. And she was not selected. She was elected. She competed against 3 other persons who were men and beat them to it.
5, actually.
5 who were men and beat them to it. And headed the university and left the university in a better form. And you say she can be the president of a country. This is the woman who presently is the vice chancellor of African Women University.
Yeah.
And you say she cannot be? This is the woman who served on the executive board of UNESCO. And you say she can't be? She can't be? Because she doesn't talk gibberish when she appears on political platforms. She can't be. You want people who talk gibberish, who are people who can insult. They can rule this country. You want people who can tell lies. Because she's not in the business of telling lies, she can't rule. So did they say about Ya Asantua, that when men were not preparing for war, she was preparing for war. But she prepared. Today we have Ya Asantua Secondary School.
Absolutely.
When men refused to go to war, Ya Asantua went to war. If you had lived that time, they would have said that women cannot fight. When Margaret Thatcher was preparing to be Prime Minister of Britain, you ought to have been in Britain. Even with a progressive society like Britain, they said that a woman cannot lead them. But Margaret Thatcher is responsible for the turning round of Britain. Angela Merkel. In fact, Germany is now thinking of getting another woman because they believe. In fact, it is said worldwide that only men start wars. That the thieves are men. That probably it will get women into positions of authority. Corruption, bribery, and all those things will reduce and going to war. Because no women have ever gathered to declare war. Only men gather to declare war.
Even with the COVID-19 fight, I'm told the presidents who are women have been able to deal with it.
Yes.
Better than...
In Norway, was it Norway or Denmark, 31-year-old lady is their prime minister. 31, not 68. 31. So when I hear people like Boabia Samoa, in fact, the gender activists should be at them. How can you, all of us here sitting here are men, but all of us were brought forth by women. And then because they brought us forth and we are men, we turned around and say the person who created me, who carried me in her stomach for 9 months, is otherwise unfit to be president. How can we be so banal in our thinking? How can we?
Sad.
It's sad. How can we? That you who laid in your mother's stomach for 9 months, you have the effrontery to say that the woman who carried you, suffered with you in the stomach for 9 months, is otherwise and brought you forth as a man, makes you a superior being to that person. What kind of banality is this? What kind of foolishness is that? We need to treat women with respect. We need to treat them with respect. The woman who carried you on her back, that you because you were shitting on the back, it makes you superior.
But they said you described somebody as bloody widow. So why are you arguing?
Bloody widow because of the blood that characterized the elections, not her. She won elections because there was blood spilled and she was a widow. I explained this several times on Joy FM. That is why I characterize her as bloody widow.
But not her person.
No, not her person.
Absolutely. Okay.
Not her person. I didn't attack, and I'm free with her. I didn't attack her as a person. I said, no widow should allow blood to be spilled for her to become a political leader. No widow. No widow should do that. And Alassane, Mrs. Alassane should have told her party that if blood is to be spilled for her to become an MP, she doesn't want to. That's what I meant. And I will not support any widow who, for personal political aggrandizement, will allow blood to be spilled. The spilling of one blood should not make me, even as a man, an MP. Why? That's what I said, and I still stand by it.
How would you respond to those who, finally, how would you respond to those who say she's unpopular? Like, for instance,
John
Boadu says, only Kaya's would wave at her when she's passing. Nobody really.
Kaya is elected as Vice Chancellor of the University of Cape.
No, there's a statement. Oh, we can even play it for you to listen to.
No, you see, one thing that I've come to,
and the insult to Kaya.
Kaya, one thing that I've come to accept.
Oh, Richard,
one thing that I've come to accept
is
is what many commentators have said about MPP. That you see, when somebody farts at you,
and you're not careful.
You want to retaliate. You bring out the real thing. That's the problem. You see, the evening they announced Professor Jane Nana Opukwa Jiman at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock. You remember we're in this studio.
Yeah.
We're waiting for an announcement to do a program.
Yeah.
And by 5:30, 6 o'clock, MPP were already holding a press statement.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That shows that they were bleeding.
They were what?
Bleeding.
Well, that's just a welcoming address.
They were bleeding. You see, because they have not announced the person. So you had information that they were going to announce the person what? And we were holding a press conference. And when they held the press conference, you know what they were talking about?
No.
They were talking about chalk.
That's all what you heard in the press conference.
I think you've concluded. Thank you. No. How can I give you 1 hour? My time is even up. But yeah, Richard, come on. You have not been fair to us. Yes.
I actually wish that we could give Richard not just 1 hour, but 24 hours. Once we give you 24 hours, we are rather destroying you. What are you going to say for 24 hours?
You know that the time is over.
Yes, please. I'm allowing it, but you make a point.
You've done 10
No, but make a point.
The first point I want to make is, I mean, it's so strange that all of a sudden our brothers in the and sisters in the NDC have found the need that women are that relevant and as such they possess special characters that made them even more superior to their male compatriots. I thought that during Nana Kunedu, Professor Mills' era and that contest, they would have seen that same light and go in that. Today they are telling us that all the men in the all the women that we had in society, they have performed everybody and all that and as such, when granted opportunity, they do better. I thought they would have looked in that direction. But let's come to the real issues. You see, you know the funny thing. Professor Jane Nana Opoku became Vice Chancellor in 2008 during the era of President Kufuor. And I'm sure she had the support of the government during those periods because they thought that in that regard there was an opportunity for her to serve the university where she's taught for corporate.
Did not make a vice chancellor.
Government supported
by election.
No, if the government supports somebody, that's what government want to vote. We have a government support. Mr. Pratt, if you allow me to do the fair. The government supported her course during that era, so she became the vice chancellor. But let's look at the other matters.
He said my governments have been interfering with the vice chancellor.
I mean, this belief that MPP is a political party that do not support the cause of women. I don't even know where it's coming from. I don't even know where this is coming from. In this country, we have our first female chief of staff in our country being given by MPP administration, and that's Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo. In this country, our first chief of staff, chief justice, a female chief justice, was under MPP. Madam Childra.
It's okay.
Of course.
Georgina Wood.
Kufuor. Who appointed?
Yes, Kufuor.
So I mean, these are facts. Yeah. So, you understand that second female chief justice, MPP. We have the first government, female government assistant, Madam Grace Bedi-Akon, being appointed under MPP. They understand that that list continues and it's endless. You won't even go to parliament. We have 36 female MPs. Out of the 36, MPP have 24. NDC has 12. So which of these two political parties looked at the cause and the impact women can play in supporting our country and our foreign march? Now let's move back to the candidature of the vice presidential candidate of NDC. I mean, there's nothing new and there's nothing that we have not seen and heard from the NDC. The point is that if the car engine is messed up, you can change all the tail lights and change all the lights. The car is in complete mess. The candidate that is going into the election is known to be incompetent and corrupt. That's what Ghanaians know. That is why the Ghanaians voted against. That's what Ghanaians voted. Allow me your time. That is why Ghanaians voted against that candidate. I'm coming. We are not being fair. That is why Ghanaians voted against that candidate. But for us, as a country, and I think the good people of this country know Madam Jane Nana Opoku, because she has had an opportunity, aside being a vice chancellor, worked at the education ministry, and we know her record over there. When you talk about her record, what Ghanaians know about her record is that, given an opportunity, she advised the then sitting president and in collaboration cancelled the teacher training allowance. When you talk about NDC, so when we cancel it, so when you mention her name to even teachers, they call Madam Cancellation, because she was interested in cancelling literally all the things that people were interested in, including book and research allowance. After getting through the same process, that advice went to the presidency and nursing training allowances were cancelled. It gives you an impression that, granted opportunity, that is what they will do. They're going to cancel it. Even listen to a comment on free education. She said it was not feasible, it's not possible, and government cannot do it. That is why they sponsored advertisements against this noble idea. And we want to go and bring this person to come and cancel what? Free education? Or cancel what? Teacher training allowance. Today, those times, the argument they were making was that by cancelling the teacher training allowance, what was going to happen was that the enrollment figures were going to go up. But no, see, currently, we have more people, we have over 46 teacher trainees across the country. During the NDC era, when they cancelled the policy, the maximum number they got was 33,000. 46,000 against 33,000. So it tells you that there is no vision. That is why President Mahama is now changing his mind in terms of he said, oh, when we give him another opportunity, he will not cancel the teacher training allowance and nursing training allowance again, because that he saw that what the president is doing is the best way forward. So for us, we are not fighting.
Okay.
We do not really care.
Okay.
What we know is that so long as the person is be part of the ticket, whatever it is that Ghanaian need to know, we will let Ghanaian know. And I'm not sure it's wrong for MPP to hold a press conference.
All right.
And detail some of the things that even Chok was a hot commodity when she was education minister.
Okay.
One of the hottest commodities. In conclusion, what I'll say is that for MPP, what Ghanaians desire and what Ghanaians deserve, they are getting.
Okay.
You are providing them jobs. You are making sure they are getting education for free.
Okay.
They are supporting the economy. You are building a formidable economy. We are building infrastructures across the country, length and breadth of the education country under a regime. Even the secondary school, the e-blocks that they decided to build, the 200 e-blocks, how many did they complete?
Okay.
In all, they built about 44.
All right.
Under MPP and under Matiopoku Prempe, this government has built close to 900 infrastructure, including school science laboratories, classroom blocks, dormitories, and whatnot.
Thank you very, very much.
For us, we are not worried.
Thank you.
We are ready, and this election, MPP is winning comprehensively.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Richard Asante. Mr. Pratt, take us home.
Well, I think when we are talking in the public space, one of the things that we ought to try and do is to establish consistency. Because here you have my brother and friend, Richard, saying that, oh, President Mahama has realized his mistake. He has said that if he comes back again, he won't cancel teacher training allowance. And in the same breath, we are arguing that the selection of Madam J. Nana Opoku Ajimai will lead to cancellation. So has President Mahama learned his mistake?
For political expediency.
Yeah, Richard, hold on because of time.
So has President Mahama learned from his mistake? Has he vowed not to cancel it or not? And if he has learned his mistake and has vowed not to cancel it, then the election of Madam J. Nana Opoku Ajimai cannot lead to cancellation. Yeah. So the consistency is lost. You understand? That's the first thing. Masa, you are talking about Nana Kuredu Ajimai Rawlings' bid for presidential candidature. You forget that the NDC, as a matter of policy and to assist her, decided to cancel her nomination fees. Yeah. Policy. The NDC assisted her by cancelling nomination fees for women. That's a fact.
And even prevented her to speak at the Congress.
No, it's not true. It's not true.
Richard, now you've changed. Allah.
It's okay.
Allah.
Yes, if he doesn't do this, trouble. So he has to do something. So I can understand my brother Richard. Masa, I am scandalized. This analogy of a car, I'm scandalized by it. The male president is the engine of the car, and the female vice president is only the tail light. Can you believe this? If this is not about a male, how can that be? The president is the engine of the car. The person with 3 PhDs.
No, it's not true. That's only one PhD.
8 master's degrees and so on. Former vice chancellor of the university, who has been elected vice presidential candidate, can only be the tail light of the car. Can you imagine? Incredible.
But this man is the main person.
Hold on. Richard, please.
I'm really worried by this. But you see, in all of this discussion, Gabi Ochidaku posted something yesterday. Yes. And I'm urging everybody to go and read Gabi Ochidaku. And we should bear in mind his position in the scheme of things in the New Patriotic Party. Gabi Ochidaku said that Nana Akufo-Addo did not want Bawumia. Yes. And that his choice was Alima Mahama.
And we all know that.
I beg you. It was Alima Mahama. And that when the MP people heard that it was going to be Alima Mahama, They organized protests across the country. And that, in one instance, when Nana Akufo-Addo woke up, there were 2 bus loads of women in his house to go and complain against the selection of Halima Mahama.
Yes.
And that even the women caucus of the MPP kicked against Halima Mahama. Put that aside. Go back to Owusu Danso's statement. Yeah. That the MPP doesn't like women, doesn't facilitate women rising in the party and so on. Is the picture not complete?
Yeah. Hold on.
Master, the picture is complete. I won't say anything again. Yeah. I'll finish. Gabi has said it all. Gabi Ochidaku, not me, oh. Gabi Ochidaku has said it all. Finish. Matter close. That Nana Akufo-Addo, he didn't even want Bawumia. Bawumia was not his first choice. His first choice was Halima Mahama. And just because of protests that were waged against her, because she's a woman. And Gabi is saying that he's hoping that the choice of Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Mensah will teach the NPP a lesson. And that they will change their ways. This is Gabi Ochidaku. Finish.
And my show has also ended because, you know, we needed to really expand the conversation. So today I will not be able to read your messages. Let me apologize really from the depth of my heart. I cannot be able to read the message. My time is up. There's another program after this one. So let me apologize to you again. I beg you.
You have actually eaten into my
yes. I beg you. So tomorrow, I promise to read your messages tomorrow. But I've seen all the messages, thousands of them. I've seen them. Those on Facebook, those on WhatsApp messages, those on those on our WhatsApp platform, those on our text message platform as well. I've seen all of them. Thank you so kindly for sending in your messages. Thank you, Honorable Inus Afuseni, for your time today. Richard Asante, glad as always to see you. Mr. Pratt, thank you very kindly as well. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Do have a very wonderful day. It has been a very good show. I'm sure that you've been able to appreciate the issues as much as I have. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Do have a very blissful day. Salute. Protect yourself at all times and make sure you stay safe. See you tomorrow.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and the champion of liberty, of human equality. Let's salute him, fellow Ghanaians, the nation's founder, Sajifo Kwame Nkrumah. May God bless him, Ghana showboy, Africa's great son,